My name is Chawahir Dahir, and I am Managing Director of Somali Development Services. I moved to Leicester 2000, and before that, I lived in Holland about 11 years.
Councillor Awale Olad, I represent Holborn and Covent Garden in the London Borough of Camden. And I was first elected in May 2010. I was a local youth worker. And what I did was I kept kids off the streets by bringing them in and funneling their energy into doing things like playing football. What I did was I stood against one of the local candidates in a by-election in 2008. I lost, but the sort of repercussions of that loss, or the consequences of that loss, was that the leader of the council listened and he said, "Well, Awali, you make a good argument here, and what I'll do is I'll ensure that the youth service you work for doesn't fall through. That we ensure we support that local service because you guys are actually doing good work."
Somalis first arrived here in the 1800s as Navy sailors and fishermen working in the ports of London's East End, Liverpool, Cardiff and Bristol. In those days, northern Somalia was still a protectorate of Britain. Steadily, new arrivals settled in the cities of Sheffield and Leeds, working in the steel industry. More recently, an influx of Somalis arrived as asylum seekers and refugees fleeing from the civil war that erupted in 1991. The official number in the last census indicates that Somalis in the UK are around 93,000, but unofficial figures put the number much higher than that, around 200,000. In the last 10 years, a second type of migration has occurred, where many Somali Europeans moved from countries such as Holland, Sweden, and Norway, seeking social tolerance in the multicultural societies of Britain. Jawahir represents this leg of new arrivals.
Reasons could be different, but mainly was kind of giving opportunity to my children, growing up in an environment where they feel their identity is enhanced. In Holland, there is a lot of integration problems, especially for young Somali generation. And my feeling was that many young people had identity crisis because the environment they're living is not giving the opportunity to flourish to their potential with, holding their own identity.
Awala, on the other hand, has been in the UK most of his life, growing up in northwest London. The Somali community is a close-knit community where preserving the traditions and collective identity forms a key aspect. Despite being thousands of miles away, many Somalis maintain close relations with family members back in Somalia and are also chief financial supporters of their families. The continuity of the civil war meant that many Somalis continued to lose family members and loved ones in Somalia, which has affected their lives here in the UK. Nevertheless, Somalis have risen above their struggles and have integrated into the British society. Their entrepreneurial skills are vivid amongst the neighbourhoods where they are predominant, with many Somali-owned businesses seen on the high streets. They also participate in the social, education, politics and public and private sector. Jawahir is the Managing Director of the Somali Development Services, a centre that provides support, guidance and advice for new arrivals in Leicester. She first set the centre up 10 years ago, when she noticed the growing need of the new arrivals settling into Leicester.
We have done a research into Somali community development needs, which we launched the result of that at the Leicester City Council. Leicester City Council was very supportive and they really wanted to address those issues. And I was working closely with them to address those issues.
Awale, as a councillor representing the Holborn and Covent Garden area of Camden, has been able to tackle a number of issues concerning his local communities. A key area he's focused on are the educational needs of the local residents.
I represent one of the highest volumes of licensed establishments in the country. That's my ward in Covent Garden. And I've had a whole host of issues, but another issue I'm very passionate about is this local school that I'm also a governor on St George the Martyr. It's a local parish Church of England school. And the kids there are very passionate about getting a zebra crossing right next to the school. And you've also got Great Ormond Street right next to the school. And as you know, Great Ormond Street Hospital is located in Great Ormond Street and it's very busy, and you've got ambulances coming in and out, you've got families visiting young children, so you've got a high level of, you've got a higher volume of traffic in that part of the ward. So the kids, rightly, the parents and teachers got together and they've petitioned and they've written to me and they've galvanised me, and the very sort of strongly worded letters I've received from the Year 6 students were very important in ensuring that the local authority listened. And that's me putting my voice out there, speaking to my colleagues on the council, speaking to the senior people on the council and telling them, look, this is really crucial. Before we have a serious accident here, let's tackle this problem before it gets bigger and we're all sorry.
Jawahir Centre, the Somali Development Services, have also been able to tackle the educational needs of the local community. She speaks of some of the milestones they've been able to achieve after searching their needs.
Because the research we did was covering, it was kind of comprehensive, it was covering all the Somali development needs. But education, because so many young children and young people were accessing schools and colleges, and they were new, so they had a lot of problems in in that transition period. We had identified that in terms of that comprehensive research, we didn't have opportunity to research in depth the problem. So we have advised the council to be conducted in-depth research into Somali children educational needs. So we had opportunity in 2004 to do that through Somali Development Services in partnership with the Montevideo University. And that helped us to make a research into the Somali children education needs in primary, in secondaries, and in colleges, and be able to speak, parents, head teachers, in colleges, as well as Leicester Council Education Department. So we have again launched, the findings of this to the City Council, and made, a very valuable recommendation. So one of the things was, key area was, that first, the assessment of young children were not, adequate because they have been assessed in English, while many Somali young children came from Holland or, other European cities, for example, Sweden or Norway, and couldn't speak English. So they couldn't assess the real ability or academical achievement of a child because the child couldn't speak the English. So one of our recommendations was to assess the children in a language they speak or could understand. So for example, in Somali, to be assessed in Somali, or they can speak in Dutch or in Swedish or in Danish, whatever language they speak, to be assessed in that language. The other things we have recommended was to have Somali assistant teachers. We have identified 22 primary schools, 3 secondaries, and 2 colleges where most of the Somali children, young people, were attending. And so we advised that in these, that they appoint Somali assistant teachers that will help and facilitate the communication between the teachers and children, and as well as the teachers and parents. And that has been implemented. That was huge achievement for us and also for City Council.
Since coming to the UK, the Somali community have been either designated as an invisible community or a community that does not contribute much positivity to the British society. Jawahir says this is largely due to misunderstandings occurring on both ends.
I think there's, I would say both sides, there's a lack of understanding. And I think, the host community may have very little information or knowledge about the Somali community. And so when people see people moving massively into their city and not knowing the reason that they're moving, it's easy to make assumptions, a negative perception, it's all this kind of stuff. But I think I always said, if people know each other, if people have more information about each other, then you can create that understanding between them. I think Somali community has done a lot of contribution to the wider society, culturally, socially, economically. And it's a very young community comparing to the other, established ethnic minority in the city, like Asian or Caribbeans. But again, the Somali community, I think many of them have already developed a lot of businesses in the city. They're very entrepreneurial people. Like if you take example as Somalis Estate, it was one of these no-go area when the Somali community moved to the city. But now it's flourishing because for the Somali community, there is mosques, there is businesses everywhere you go. It's a thriving.
Whereas before, what was the case?
Before was area where had reputation of gangs and drugs and all kind of problems. So I remember when I was moving to Leicester, one of my friends who at that time lived in St Matthews invited me to have dinner with her. So we went there, and 10 o'clock we want to go back to where we were staying. And we want to take a taxi, but no taxi want to come there. That was, in terms of safety, it was, there was a huge problem. You could not see people walking, when it's dark. So people were, really afraid for their safety. And I had to look somebody who can give me a lift because no taxi want to come to that time. And now, St Matthews, 12 o'clock midnight, you can walk there.
As the years went by, the needs of the communities Jawahir Centre served grew. Newly arrived residents continued to settle in Leicester, and the needs of the ones that had come some time ago grew from basic needs to integrate into the city to needing to develop their skills and potential.
Over the years, our services have grown gradually. And as I mentioned before, we started first with the drop-in session, and then we added to the Homo Club, support for young people. And we added, after our research into Somali employment needs, we added learning program where people, especially women, have been able to be educated in our center, having ESOL classes, as well as computer skills, and having crash on site that could accommodate their children. The community services have been also able to accommodate other communities. So now Somali Development Services actually is not just for Somalis, although initially has been set up to help the growing Somali community in Leicester. But we help now everyone who comes through our doors, no matter their background, no matter their color or race or ethnicity or faith, we help all. So, for example, last year, 45% of our service users were non-Somalis.
There has been much reference to the Somali community being involved in terrorism-related activities. A few years ago, some Somali British youth were allegedly recruited by a terrorism group in Somalia, Al-Shabaab. This has created a state of moral panic that has strained the relations between the Somali community and the other communities in Britain. Somalis like Jawahir have been actively involved in tackling this issue and creating awareness that terrorism isn't something the Somali people subscribe to.
Over the years, there was a growing issue in relation to terrorism and labeling the Somali community that there's potential of element of terrorism, because the growing issues in Somalia back, which is led by Al-Shabaab, there is feeling here that many Somali young people has been targeted or, for example, radicalized by certain groups. So we have done some work with Leicester City Council in terms of raising the awareness of the community. So we did a specific project towards that element. And the key aim was, firstly, to see how the community themselves see this issue. So we had sessions with only women, we had sessions with young people, we had sessions with imams from the mosques, and the key elements that came out from those sessions were that many Somali families were aware about the issue, but also found that a lot has been exaggerated. That local government, or for example central government or the media, has really exaggerated about the issue. But there is element that of recognition about there is certain Somali young people that has been targeted by certain groups.
Looking at Somali youngsters like Awale, it is evident that many of them feel part of the British society and wish to contribute to its well-being. Through his work, that is exactly what Awale hopes to be remembered as.
Who cared, somebody who only wanted to improve his locality, someone who wanted to be part of a movement which helped support people like me who came from war and famine to a council house in Camden. I mean, that's a person I sympathise with, and that's what I want to be remembered for. Someone who came from war to someone who actually wanted to make a difference to society.
The key objective that contributes to the success of the cultural diversity of Britain is its people being committed to enrich themselves as well as Britain's societies. It is important to feel a sense of responsibility and help one another, and that's what keeps Jawahir going.
I think my motivation is, with my skills, with my experience, how can I give back to my country? Because I fled from civil war. I cannot go back to my country. At least I can help the Somali community who are here. But also other motivation is, we live in this country. I have been, living in last 21 years in Europe. Europe has been fantastic, of accommodating our families when they most need it. So it's about also commitment of contributing to the wider society to help them to accommodate the needs of the Somali community, because I cannot operate in isolation, and I cannot help the disadvantaged community, including Somali community, unless I help the wider community to be able to accommodate those needs. So you have to be a very good citizen, not just a citizen who have rights, but exercising your also responsibility to accept that it's not they and us, it is our city, it is our society. And so we have to work together, and we have to create that environment which is beneficial to all our communities.
Tirsi wa koni marre اشتكينايا بدوانك ناري سليقي مرينايا تيرسي وكوني مري اشتكينايا بدوانك ناري سليقي مرينايا حتى قلي وردادو ويحنتي وخي ما حيصح شي خلينا